Hey everybody, welcome back to Trades and Gains. I'm your host Max Pitts, and this is where we break down the money moves that whales make while retail gets left holding the bag. Today, we're diving into what only can be described as a summer-sized nuclear-level hedge from Wall Street, with nearly 1 billion in puts on SPY and QQQ alone, all while the same jokers keep slurping calls on NVDA, Meta, and Tesla like a frat kid with a beer funnel. Yeah, it's weird. So buckle up because we're about to decode the receipts big money doesn't want you to see. If you like these kinds of videos, by the way, make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe because it helps the channel out tremendously. And today we will be using our favorite options flow software, Investor Central Club, where you can get your first month for 70% off. Just use that code 130. That's ONE30. 70% off your first month. So let's dive right into today's episode. First up, let's talk about our big block trades. The big money orders this week were the size of Jeff Bezos' ego. SPY puts for December 19th for the 560 strike right here. We can see almost 165.1 million dumped into these. This netted 130,000 contracts with a $12.70 average. These came through on June 25th of 2025 at 1:46 p.m. Now, this also came in a couple times. We can see it again, 560 for 15.4 mil. We're seeing some 600s here, 565. So we're seeing a lot of hedging going into SPY. Does this mean maybe those institutions aren't sold on this rally? Well, being a rally. This is a casual, by the way, around, let's call it 200 plus million, 250 million, 300 million almost, that came in for blocks, meaning these were kind of concentrated efforts to open up these positions. And we can tell by the volume being greater than the open interest in some of these that they're fresh positions as well. This isn't hedging your retirement account flow. I think this whole market might blow up flow. And it gets even spicier. QQQ puts also came through. Our biggest order from this week alone was 197 million into the 515 puts for, again, that December 19th, 2025 strike. We also had some multiple orders come through on these, 16.9 million into the 540s as well. So again, more hedging, and these are definitely not your average retail traders. Nearly $500 million in premiums alone going into QQQ this week. Someone out there is either terrified of what's coming or playing 4D chess while the rest of us are drooling on the couch. Oh, and let's sprinkle in some calls just so you could stay a little more confused. NVIDIA, we saw an $18.23 million block on the 146 calls due for July 18th of 2025. We also saw Meta with a $6.2 million block here as well, or $7.56 million block here that we saw on the $700 calls that are due for July 18th of 2025 as well. And then we also saw Tesla. Tesla, of course, what would be flow without some Tesla coming through? With our Tesla, let's go ahead and refilter here for no ETFs. Our Tesla calls that were coming through are going to be a little more towards the bottom. We're seeing 3.37 million get thrown into these 310 calls. But then we also had some downside action here with the 260 puts for December 18th of 2026. So that's a long dated hedge out there. These are out of the money and deep. So are they there to wreck the party? Maybe. Who knows? We're going to have to find out though. Let's go ahead and switch gears and move over to our unusual flow from the week where things got a little weird and spicy. To kick things off, we had SPY with our biggest unusual order of the week. The 475 puts for August 15th of 2025. We had 9.15 million, netting about 149,000 contracts. What the frick? 475 for August 15th, someone's definitely expecting those rate cuts not to hit or are hedging against a longer position. We also had ServiceNow come through, 6.65 million on the 1.1K calls. ServiceNow is not a ticker that we see a lot of money get dumped into often. So this is definitely unusual and something definitely that's worth highlighting. Again, we're seeing Meta 1.43K strike, 5.62 million dumped into these with a $14 average. But again, these are very, very long dated. We're talking January 15th of 2027. That's 2 years out. That's definitely some long awaited conviction. Now, we also had solar come back. You remember when we posted that run play and it absolutely tanked because those bills came out? Well, it looks like someone thinks solar could make a comeback. FSLR saw $170 calls with a $1.08 million premium attached with a 360 average. Now, one thing to keep in mind is run is more commercial. So not commercial, more customer business to consumer base. FSLR is dependent upon government contracts and more commercial and corporate contracts as well. So does this mean we could see some more money get dumped into these areas potentially? We're going to have to wait and see what this better thinks because, again, those are July 11th, 2025 expirations on those. We also had, where else are we? Marvel, MRVL, $85 calls, 1.76 million in premiums. And then we had Circle as well. We were seeing some articles circulating around Circle, get it, for the 220 puts, by the way, August 15th of 2025. And people are talking about how there might be cracks starting to come into Circle here. Maybe they're not as solid as people think, and this was a hype stock. So watch for some downside that could be coming to us here in the next couple of weeks. Now, seriously, some of these trades are so ridiculous, they make me want to call myself a therapist or call my therapist for that matter. But hey, someone is betting big, and usually the weirdest trades are the ones that end up making bank, in my experience. Now, let's move over to where Darth Vader resides within the dark side. Just kidding. We're going to look at the dark pools because this is where we can see institutions either rotating or doubling down for some upside and or downside as well. Now, our leader of the week was TLT. We saw 1.59 billion pumped into TLT. That's not a typo either. 1.59 billion. So that's our big guy right there. NVIDIA came in next, 795.626 million at the 147.90 spot. So it looks like we're seeing some people get bullish over there. We saw QQQ with the 543.65 spot, 679 million deployed as well. And then SPY popped up pretty frequently. Their biggest order for the week was 615.32 million over on SPY. At the 615.32 spot. So it looks like some people are starting to double down. We also saw Mr. Amazon, TSM. We're definitely seeing the semiconductors get some love throughout the flow. We even have AMD down here. 289.1 mil deployed on those at the 144 level. And this is after we called out those 400% swings earlier this week. These are not your cousin Steve's Robinhood trades, folks. This big money quietly moving pieces while retail is distracted by TikTok and people posting their gains on Twitter. You think these guys trust the market? Hell no. They're hedging and offloading size with the subtlety of a drunk elephant. Now, here's time for some FlowScanner. Our FlowScanner, we had QQQ leading the pack for the week. We were seeing about 490 million in total overall premiums pumped into QQQ. Now, what was the most frequent contract? Mind you, 450 million was inputs. So just keep that in mind here. Our most common contract for QQQ were the 550 calls, ironically enough. But again, that 450 million inputs is what's sticking out to me through this. We also had SPY. We had 413 million. With 338 million coming in on puts, with our most common contract being those 585 puts we had 17 hits on those 585 puts. And again, those are due for 815. NVIDIA's next up with 225 million pumped into it, 17 million or 171 million in calls against 54 million in total puts, with our most common contract coming in as those 160s. Again, $5 was the average that we saw initially on the 25th. And we can see that those have been moving nicely throughout the week as well. Even on the 24th, you could have got in for $3.20 here. So we had about 31 hits on these. So a pretty popular contract, you could say. And coming into fourth to round things out, we saw IWM with the 204 puts as our most common contract, 72 million with 24 million in calls against 48 million in puts. Looks like somebody's expecting some more downside with the small caps in IWM. We also saw Tesla with 66.6 million with 35 million in calls against 32 million in total puts. And again, that most common contract for Tesla, giving us our top 5 for the week, would be the 340 calls due for July 3rd of 2025. And we can see how these premiums were moving quite nicely. On the 25th, we were seeing about 660 is what the average was. And then we saw $20.50 as well on the 24th. So these moved quite nicely for these traders. And it looks like someone is expecting Elon to make some more moves as well. So here's where it all comes together, and this is what we can take away from this week's flow. Big money is slamming calls on AI names like NVIDIA, Meta, and Tesla. Simultaneously, they're buying puts on all of the indexes like the world is ending. They're using dark pools to quietly offload and reload and reposition themselves, and triggering every FlowScanner alert known to man. This is what I like to call a whale sandwich strategy. Ride the hype train up, hedge for nuclear meltdowns, offload quietly, and rinse and repeat. They'll leave retail twisted in knots, unsure which way to turn, which is exactly how they like it. The pros love to throw you off your game so they can scoop up your trades for pennies. So what do you do with this? You stay nimble, you watch these flows, you question every rally, because if the whales are hedging to the tune of 1 billion while still partying in NVIDIA calls, you better believe something is brewing. If you want to keep seeing these breakdowns, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, and comment below. Are you team summer crash or team summer rip? I'll be here breaking down all the receipts so you don't get rugged. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. And remember, this is not financial advice. Please do your own research before going into these plays. I'm just here to give you a little more context and some laughs, hopefully. When Wall Street shows you its cards, though, it's probably hiding the best ones up its sleeve. I'll see you guys on Sunday for our weekly Outlook report, and I hope you have a great weekend.